I'm Padma Venkatraman, and I'm the author of Climbing the Stairs. It's set in India in 1941, and it's about a young girl growing up during this time, which was really something very crucial, I think, and very interesting in our world history, because you had World War II going on, which is very, very violent, of course, and at the same time you had Mahatma Gandhi's non-violent movement. And Indian men, especially of the time, were torn in terms of what they should do, whether they should join Mahatma Gandhi's non-violent independence movement and fight against Britain for India's independence, or whether they should join the British, who were actually ruling and oppressing India at the time, and become part of the Allied force in World War II, and then fight on that side for really the world's freedom. And that was a choice that was very important to men in my family. And so the book is inspired by things that happened in my family, and every incident in the book is true. It's largely based on my mother's life.
So it's semi-autobiographical.
Semi-autobiographical from my mother's point of view, yes. My mother being the most wonderful woman in the whole world.
Has she read the book?
Yes.
What does she think about it?
She thinks it's lovely. The only thing that she was sort of shocked by at one point was that I have a love interest, Raman, for the woman, and that's based on a number of other Indian women that I interviewed of the time who had married Indian men of their own choice. And I was very interested in how that happened, because at the time, of course, arranged marriage was the common thing. My mother herself had an arranged marriage, but now lots of people walk up to her and say, "So, did you marry the love of your life? Did you marry your boyfriend? How did that work out?" And she says, "I didn't marry my boyfriend. I had no boyfriend. I was just up in the library looking at books. I wasn't meeting anybody on the sly." So that part of it I don't think she likes, but the rest of the book, of course, it's dedicated to her and to my grandfather. So
do you think, who inspires you? Are there writers that inspire you?
There's so many writers that inspire me that it's hard to say. I think one writer that I find very interesting, he's a writer for adults, is Kazuo Ishiguro. And I think he's just magnificent, because in terms of the breadth of what he's able to do, I think that's wonderful. And in a way, he's my writing role model, I think.
And you've written quite a few books. Do you have a favorite book? Or
Climbing the Stairs.
Okay.
For sure. And the reason I say that, I mean, I'm not being facetious, the reason that I say that is because my other books that I wrote were sort of, when I was a scientist, I was an oceanographer, I told you that. So I was an oceanographer, and I was into that, and I loved to write, so I sort of wrote on the side. And the books got published, and most of them in India, and I was very happy that they did. But it wasn't something that I dedicated my life to in the way that I do now. And when Climbing the Stairs came about, it was a time of great change in my life, and I thought I have to make a decision about what I want to do. And I decided that I was going to be a writer and say goodbye to the oceanography that I had been studying and put so much hard work into, and had, come quite far along in. And so at that stage, it was a difficult choice. I'm very glad I made it. And so because of that, and because this is the first book that I wrote thinking of myself as a writer, because of all that I had to give up for it, Climbing the Stairs is definitely my favorite at this point, although I have a second love in my life, which is my second novel, Island's End, which should be out next year.
I was just going to ask you that. So what is that about?
That's actually based a little more on something in my life. In a sense, I was on these islands. They're called the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. They're off the coast of India. And I worked there as an oceanographer for about a year. And at that time, I came into contact with this tribe that has had very little contact with modern civilization. And the book is really about them, written through their eyes, and about the conflict that they face when they come in touch with Indians from the mainland. So it's about that. It's about sort of the brown on black racism that exists in that part of the world. Unfortunately, it's the superiority ideas that people have because, they have modern technology. These people don't. and they don't necessarily respect the ancient wisdom of those of that tribe and all of that, and it's very, very sad because that tribe is really, you know, close to extinction. And it's not an anthropological text, it's not a non-fiction book at all, it's just it's fiction, and although it's inspired by my experiences of living with them, I gave the tribe a fictional name and all of that so that I could sort of dissociate my scientific oceanographer brain from my novelist brain and just say, all right, I'm going to write something that is true to the story rather than to necessarily every little detail being specifically from that tribe, because there are very many, actually quite a few different tribes on that set of islands that are all in different stages of modernization.
And what advice do you have for other aspiring writers?
Write because you love it, if you love it. I think that's my only piece of advice. And the reason that I say that is because I don't think writing gives you necessarily very much in terms of the sort of rewards that a normal career would give you. If I had stayed in oceanography, I would have had different kinds of rewards, and they would have been consistent. I would have seen them more often. But writing is such an odd business, really. I've been very, very lucky and very fortunate and very grateful about that. But nevertheless, I think it's a profession in which I see some people, well, quite a few writers sometimes get a little bit maybe self-obsessed or a little upset that they didn't get this or that or that or this, and I think it's just such a subjective field. There's nothing to it except whether somebody likes it or somebody doesn't like it, and so all I have to say is, if you love writing, do it.